This has been a great decade for horror films. The genre seemed to shift and bend all the time and evolved as the decade progressed. The result is a constantly moving breath of fresh or putrid air in modern films and classics. Over the past decade, some of the most iconic works in horror history have been honored by horror masters. Watch to the end of this video as we bring you a list of the scariest films from the past 10 years. First off, what makes a great horror film? To start with, the end of the movie simply has to have the viewers on the edge of their seats. Elevated heartbeats and bated breaths are a part of the deal. There was a spine-chilling, delicious, delectable, fantastical boom in the horror film genre throughout the 80s and 90s, and that doesn't imply that the last decade has been a total loss. Some of the scariest stuff ever seen made it onto the big screen between 2010 and 2020. Just think of the development of special effects, and how films over the past 10 years have been taking advantage of that to make the frights more real. And there's the storytelling methods, seriously grade A acting, and Hollywood superstars. The genre couldn't get better if it tried. Keep watching. To start, Creep 2014. Critics didn't give this film the attention it deserved. Many of them simply overlooked this gem of the genre. Audiences, however, had a different song to sing, or is that Scream to Scream, or A Nightmare to Dream. The unfolding story turned out to be truly disturbing. In the plot, something that begins as a somber and heartwarming tale soon tumbles down the rabbit hole into a horror fest that scares and thrills non-stop. Then, The Babadook 2014. Jump scares and creepy sounds, yeah, you expect those, and they have to be realistic enough to keep you unnerved. But if a filmmaker can create horror without having to resort to those while still achieving serious tension, that's a winner. Sure, there are scenes in The Babadook that make for classic jump scare material, but the film manages to be astonishingly creepy just from the acting and visuals. The premise is smart and storybook elements come alive. And then there's the clever use of props, like the pop-up book that will have you spinning in your seat. Definitely one of the sleeper hits of the decade. Also, Don't Breathe 2016. Don't Breathe is one of those rare treasures that subvert expectations and morph single concepts, weaving them into a terrifying work of art. Don't Breathe takes a simple idea, a home robbery, and turns it into something deeply sinister. A group of thieves gets the fright of their lives as the tables are turned. They try to break into a blind man's home. This would be an easy score, right? Not so. With surprises and plot twists all the time, this film received fantastic reviews from audiences and critics alike. And of course, The Autopsy of Jane Doe 2016. Death perturbs most people. It worms its way into the mind and causes panic. So, imagine being locked in a mortuary. The Autopsy of Jane Doe dials this concept up to 100, with the needle laying flush in the red. It does this by introducing all kinds of spooky ingredients that create a tense and extremely sinister experience. This film flew under the radar for many genre fans and only saw a limited release back in 2016. It went global in 2017 and is well worth your time. Next up, Hereditary 2018. Some fans are partial to slow burn horror films, and Hereditary is just that. It runs for more than 2 hours. That said, it's well worth your viewing time. The director is a master at building tension, and this slow build culminates in a sequence of acts that are as terrifying as they get. If you're a fan of the supernatural subgenre, this is a must-watch. The film features some of the most unsettling visual effects ever seen on screen in a horror movie. Edge of your seat adventure? Tick that. Make you feel uncomfortable? Tick that too. All-around great film? Double tick that. Then, The Ritual 2017. A group of people goes hiking in the woods. Sound familiar? Of course it does. It's one of the oldest tropes in the horror genre. Many films that make use of this premise are a bit long in the tooth. They quickly become a cliche in a minute, but there are some, like The Ritual, that are downright chilling in every department. The Ritual proves that tried and true horror recipes can still be spine chillers with the right director and some unnerving twists. Also great is Sinister 2012. Classic plots and premises were the order of the day for some of the horror classics that saw the light of day over the past 10 years. Sinister was one of these. It managed to turn a run-of-the-mill ghost story into an alarming, fear-mongering festival. The storyline offers a myriad of fascinating twists and manages to burrow its way into the psyche of audiences unlike any other film of the time. It starts with the idea of a series of haunted videotapes, and it ends as a horrifying fight for survival against unheard-of enemies. Another must-watch is The Conjuring 2013. Want a traditional ghost story? Then this one is for you. The Conjuring is such an influential film in the horror genre that it actually spawned a franchise. There are now sub-stories that offer separate character development for individual characters from the first film. The film will make you feel comfortably uncomfortable, with standard elements like spooky locations and frightening paranormal entities, as a husband and wife ghost hunting team get more than they bargained for when they travel to a remote farmhouse. Next up, Midsommar 2019. Ari Aster has already established himself as one of the great up-and-coming names in horror, mostly because he directed the 2018 Hereditary. Fans were in high anticipation for the release of Midsommar, hoping it would be equally chilling. The film didn't disappoint, cementing Ari Aster's growing enduring legacy as a rising star in the horror genre. This fright fest tells of a couple who are struggling to connect. They retreat from their everyday lives by going to a Swedish midsummer festival in the hope of repairing the relationship. But, and of course, there's a big but, things take a sudden and abrupt turn for the worst. Now, let's look at Insidious 2010. There are similarities between The Conjuring and James Wan's Insidious. This film was also disturbing to the extent it spewed out its own franchise. Truly heart-racing, dark, and thrilling, this film had all the ingredients of a genre superstar. It's masterfully crafted, with scenes that have a steady build-up to a hyper-tense finale. The story tells of a couple whose son falls into a coma. Then, they begin to believe their house is haunted. Noises, freaky hallucinations, and strange noises prompt them to contact a psychic. From here, the film dives into the supernatural in ways neither the audience nor the on-screen family will forget in a hurry. And now, VHS 2012. VHS was pegged as a hit or miss by critics, but there's a myriad of fans that loved this short film collection, and if you enjoy horror anthologies, you'll certainly be one of them. This subgenre has seen an exploding fan base over the past decade, and the film itself has spawned a whole host of entries in its franchise, with the most recent being VHS 94. It tells of a gang of criminals that get their kicks from filming their crimes. They take a gig to steal a mysterious videotape, but they start experiencing a whole bunch of seriously disturbing things while being forced to watch a string of horrific short films. Also, there is Grave Encounters 2011. Remember the Blair Witch Project? This is another of those realistic-looking found footage presentations. This subgenre has a way of snatching and holding the audience's attention like a few others. Watching something unsettling is one way to get your horror kicks, but watching something that creates the illusion that it really happened and that you're watching the actual events is something completely different and completely terrifying too. This adventure follows a group that receives a submission for a new ghost hunting show. What starts out as any other rather mundane caper devolves into the stuff nightmares are made of. Then, there's The Taking of Deborah Logan 2014. The Taking of Deborah Logan follows the same kind of documentary structure as Grave Encounters. It's a chilling dissertation on Alzheimer's that steadily devolves into something a lot more sinister as the film progresses. Viewers are mesmerized by the apparently horrible and frightening side effects of the disease, before being surprised by something completely and utterly unexpected. Jill Larson gives an exceptional performance, and the pace of the film is absolutely perfect. Now, It Follows 2014. Again, this film is a slow burn horror. The scenes are unsettling and will stay with you long after you've watched them. The scare factor is superb, and the tale that is spun and the side tracks it presents are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat throughout. The suspense and dread factor holds steady all the way from the start of the movie. It tells the story of a young girl forced to contend with something she doesn't understand, something supernatural and sinister after a romantic encounter. And finally, Host 2020. This film was made entirely during the lockdown. The result is one of the most chilling movies of 2020. The film is topical. It follows a group that hosts an online seance. The runtime is under an hour, but this is genuinely a horror gem. One of the best recent scary movies, without a doubt.